participating in entrepreneurship, with many starting and managing their businesses and significantly contributing towards economic growth and job creation in various African countries. However, the lack of adequate exposure, support, training, mentorship, access to finance, and socio-cultural issues like gender inequality, religion, and the likes pose a threat to their existence and growth. An African Women Impact Summit is coming up and is poised to make waves on the continent as it convenes a gathering of influential voices, experts, and of course leaders dedicated to advancing the role of African women in various sectors. And this morning I'll be talking to Dr. David James Egu, who is the co-founder Africa Women Impact Summit and CEO Eden Integrated Services Limited. Thank you so much, Dr. David James, for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
So based on your years of experience, interaction, and of course, maybe research, does the African woman have the mettle, the potential, and of course, the hunger to pursue leadership positions, to succeed in those leadership positions and transform Africa's socio-economic landscape?
Okay, certainly I agree with the fact that African women do have the capacity and the potential to contribute immensely to the success of our continent. But there has been quite a lot of challenges that has made that impossible for them over the years. And I believe if we are pretty very concerned about the progress of our continent, we must then now begin to pay critical attention to this demographic that, in my opinion, has been left behind over the years. I will always use this analogy. You can't possibly expect 100% results when you are given only 50% of your population the opportunity or equal opportunity to actually be able to thrive. So when you look at it critically, you realize there is actually an economic capacity or economic outcome when we empower women, when we provide a level playing field for our women to thrive. In fact, if you look at the report by ICF in 2020, the informal sector are led by women. About 24% of that sector is actually being led by women across Africa. And of course, it varies from country to country. You look at the likes of Rwanda, you see that Rwanda has a lot more higher number in that area. That goes to show that women do occupy a very sensitive and a very important position in the economic prosperity of Africa. So you can't afford to neglect that demographic. And I believe that what has happened in Africa over time is because women has been neglected, women hasn't been given the fair opportunity to actually thrive because of that.
Hello, Dr. David. Okay, I guess we're having a technical glitch there. And hello, Dr. David.
Full opportunity for women
Okay.
in value, the progress and prosperity of our continent.
Okay, we lost you for a minute there, but then it's nice for you, David, to have evaluated the potential that African women-led businesses have on the continent. So what is actually the inspiration behind the Africa Women Impact Summit? And what are the key objectives of these summits?
Oh, okay, for us, because over the last 10 years, we've been very supportive, or rather, we've provided quite a lot of incentive for businesses led by young people over the last 7-10 years, right? But what we discovered was that there is a lacuna, there is a big gap between businesses led by men to this sector. Africa could actually leverage the untapped potential of women within the continent. So what we are doing is actually leading intervention to ensure that we'll close this gap. Take, for example, our approach is in two levels, right? Advocacy, putting issues of gender parity on global or national discourse to ensure that we buy in and educate a lot more people why that is so important. And secondly, on the other level, you can't quite talk about gender parity, gender equality without talking about financial inclusion, without talking about economic empowerment. So we now have gone further beyond rhetoric to ensure that we empower our women. Take, for example, what we are doing this year. We are training 1,000 women in digital marketing, cybersecurity, and of course, artificial intelligence in partnership with Microsoft. Can you possibly imagine the impact this would have on businesses within the continent. And our plan in the next 5 years is to do this for 100,000 women. By implication, what that means is that if 100,000 women are empowered in this area, and you already know, you can't possibly talk about business as success in this 21st century without talking about automation, without talking about cyber security, without talking about digital marketing, without talking about, I mean, these are critical areas that women require empowerment, and that's
all
exactly
right,
what we are
Doctor.
leading the charge in this area to ensure that for our women to fully engage, they have all the requisite skills and knowledge they need to actually be able to do that favorably.
Okay, Dr. David, I'm being intimated that Dr. Uche Odems, who is the co-founder, also a co-founder, Africa Women Impact Summit, has joined us live on the show. Dr. Uche, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you so much for joining us. Now, Dr. David has said so much about what the Africa Impact Summit is, what it means for the women, and what you are hoping to bring on board in terms of the objectives. But then let's quickly look at the theme of the summit, which is the Africa we want: inclusion, leadership, and influence. So, Dr. Uche, what kind of Africa does a modern African woman desire or dream of?
A modern African woman desire an Africa where there will be equal opportunity. I mean, you can actually attest to the fact that currently, right now, there's no equal opportunity. I mean, we are working very hard. Thank God for countries that are doing, are actually representing this very well, like the countries like Rwanda and a couple of other countries, but we are still far away from reality. I mean, an African woman right now needs equality. We need equality. We need equal opportunity. We need inclusion. Women need inclusion in governance. Women need inclusion in organizations. I mean, in private institutions, in government institutions, and all. So there's a big gap, and that's exactly what we are doing. That's why this stuff about the African Women Impact Summit. I mean, it's all over, talked about in Africa and beyond Africa and all, and only for us to find out that men are behind it and all. And I just laughed because I was like, hello, number one, every single man from the day you are born until the day you die is under the influence of a woman. Everybody under the influence of a woman. I want a better future for my daughter. I want a better future for my sister. I want a better future for the women in my life. And how can this happen if we don't lend our voice? You know very well, over the years, before 18th century, 14th century, imagine how many decades, imagine how many centuries that men have dominated the space. It's not just going to happen by women saying, we need this, we need that. The men need to lend their voice to the conversation. And that's what people like us are doing. Like, for instance, for you to show that we intentionally are doing this is at the program, which is on Sunday at the Oriental Hotel by 5 p.m., all road leads to Oriental Hotel. Now, on that day, 5 p.m. at the Oriental Hotel, we are going to be giving out special award to men that are impacting women, men that are influencing. We call it the African he for she hero. The likes of Ali that are making impact are going to be recognized, especially on that particular day.
Okay.
So that's exactly what the whole thing is all about. So we know that it's time for women to take their place, and we're pushing the narrative. We are taking the agenda to another level entirely. And I know in a short while, we are going to have 100% inclusion of women in every sphere.
Oh, okay. Dr. Uche Odems, Dr. David James Egu, that's too much we can actually accommodate on the show. But then we say thank you so much for talking to us, and of course for this initiative that you are bringing in terms of empowering African women, hoping that growth will come your way and that will translate into economic growth for the continent. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Now, the African Women Impact Summit is not only a gathering of like-minded individuals, but also a catalyst for change by actually amplifying the voices and contributions of African women and their diaspora counterparts Aris claims to create a more inclusive and equitable society, just as the guests have said, where women can thrive and play a vital role in Africa's development. Now, before we wrap up the show, let's take you through this economic drive in 100 days, looking at the scorecard of Nigeria's president, that is Bola Tinubu. And one key focus of the president Tinubu's administration is on arguably a major definition of the fiscal policies in Nigeria to increase revenue and reduce excesses by government. Now, this has been evidenced with major tax reforms, increase in revenue in the oil and gas sector, and the improvement of the business climate in the country, while also increasing investment climate, of course, in the country. News Central's Adesha Wadushoga explains the details of how this has played out in President Tinubu's 100 days in office. Let's take a listen.
In his assumption to office, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu had promised to revamp the economy. One of the major decisions that shook the economic landscape in the country was the removal of petrol subsidy, with the intentions to reduce government spending. This took a great impact on balance of trade, cost of food and other commodities, purchasing power and income security, among others.
You come to the market just like the way you saw me pricing things. You no longer get them the same way we used to buy again. Even them themselves, they keep complaining. They buy very cost.
The fuel that is being smuggled across the borders are no longer profitable for smuggling. Hence, the smuggling has stopped. And then the artificial numbers that we have for local consumption now becomes a reality.
The removal of petrol subsidy was followed with the discontinuation of a crude swap deal by the country's oil firm, NNPC, where traders are expected to pay cash for gasoline import and private companies begin importing petrol, reflecting a clear deregulation of the sector and reduce government spending. On the 3rd of July 2023, through the Federal Inland Revenue Service, the Nigerian government announced a value-added tax direct initiative to increase tax collection from the market traders and informal sector, as well as reduce multiple taxations in the informal economy.
Based on the value-added tax law, if your turnover, that's your sales in a year, is not more than 25 million, you are exempted from VAT. So my estimation is that 90% or more of those traders will be exempted as a result of that.
3 days after, the president signed 4 executive bills, which include the suspension of the 5% excise tax on telecommunication services, as well as the excise duty escalation on locally manufactured products. This policy was able to tackle the challenge of multiple taxation system and easing tax burdens on businesses and individuals.
It is good that we chase revenue. We need revenue, actually. But in the course of chasing the revenue, we must be careful so that we don't kill the chicken that will lay the golden egg.
Following the suspension of excess taxes for businesses, the president proceeded to set up a presidential committee on fiscal policy and tax reforms to enhance the revenue collection efficiency, ensure transparent reporting, and promote the effective utilization of tax and other revenue to boost citizens' tax morale, foster a healthy tax culture, and drive voluntary compliance.
The committee has been established to address the broad physical challenges facing our economy. Its mandate shall be divided into 3 broad areas: physical governance, B, tax reforms, and third, growth facilitation.
Although the first 100 days of President Tinubu's administration have been tough on Nigerians, but many economists have argued that this has breathed a new life and a major revamp to Nigeria's economy in such a short term. However, analysts have urged the president to improve investment in the oil and non-oil sector, like the energy, agriculture, tech, among others, to increase revenue and reduce government spending. Adesha Wadushoga reporting.
That's our correspondent, Adisha Wadushoga, bringing us details, looking at the scorecard of President Bola Tinubu's 100 days in office. And for Nigerians, they are yearning and hoping for economic reprieve. Of course, looking at the different economic measures that the Nigerian government has brought on board. 100 days gone, 1,360 days left. Let's see what transformation can come to Nigeria. That is the end of Business Edge for today. You can follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. Don't forget to visit our website, www.newscentral.africa, and download our mobile app on App Store and Play Store. My name is Lekon Obanjo. Enjoy the rest of your day.